All right, and we're good to go. So yeah, it sounds like it's been a crazy few days for you guys.
It's been a great opportunity to flex muscles that we've been working on toning all year. We took about a phone call in about 3 hours and set up the convention center, right? We contacted the city and said, we don't have enough room for the people to continue to come into our calling. Here's the deal. We'll shut down our calling and take all of our staff and services and set up the convention center. Let us do this thing. And so the city said, okay. So we've been running nonstop 24 hours a day since then.
And it was just in time, too, because winter storms were sweeping across the state of Texas.
We have about 300 folks in here now, and they're coming in every hour. I think it's 7 degrees outside right now. And I know hotels are full around the city. The shelters are full. Now we've got issues with power going out at different places around the city. Convention center is fine with power, but some of our other partners and shelters are struggling with power going on and off. So it's kind of a worst case scenario in some ways. Trying to figure out how to staff this thing, trying to figure out how to afford this thing. And we need all the community support we can get right now.
That was Wayne Walker with the local nonprofit Our Calling. That whole week, Dallas and the rest of the state needed that support too, as the freezing temperatures burst pipes, an unstable power grid led to days-long blackouts, and a rush on water crippled the supply. The same day I spoke with Walker, millions of people across Texas woke up without electricity. You're listening to the CobCast. I'm Cobb, and this is the cast. That morning, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, the agency which manages the state's power grid, declared a Level 3 energy emergency alert and began rolling blackouts to stabilize the grid.
Discovery's 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Except they weren't exactly rolling. ERCOT initially said that people should expect outages through Monday and possibly Tuesday. They were only expected to last 15 to 45 minutes at a time, but Encore, one of the city's main energy providers, later announced the blackouts could last longer. And they did.
This is Sarah.
Hi Sarah, this is Jacob Vaughn with the Dallas Observer.
Hi, how are you?
Great, how about yourself?
Hanging in there, relatively, so.
That's Sarah Lamb. She's a Dallas resident, and by the time I called her, she'd already had a rough couple of days.
So I live in the M Streets, just off of Greenville Avenue, and went to bed on Sunday night with power, and woke up to a house that was 58 degrees.
The digital clock on her stove was flashing. 12 a.m. 12 a.m.
So an indication that the power had been off, a few times in the night. And then we had power until 11 o'clock yesterday morning. And then we've just been without since. My house is built in the 20s, so all original windows, it's pier and beam. So quickly, when I left the house, the house dropped in temperature significantly. I finally left to go to a friend's house to charge and to get food and warm up. And when I left at 3 o'clock yesterday, it was at 53 degrees, my house.
And it continued dropping.
And then I popped back in around 7, and it was down to 50 degrees. Still didn't have any electricity. I do have 2 small kids, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, which makes it really tough. And then we loaded up the car and went over to a friend's house to try to brave the cold and the outage.
And at that point, it didn't really seem like there was an end in sight.
And is it Encore? Is that your electricity provider?
It is.
Got it. Have you gotten any sort of notification from them as to how long this is going to be the case?
no indication. I called multiple times. I also tried to report it online, and their website seemed to be having a hard time downloading to report an outage or get an update. I did finally get through yesterday at 6 o'clock, and the message that I received was that any commercial buildings or residences that were able to receive electricity would have power restored to them by last night, and that doesn't appear to be the case.
This also affected Lamb's work. She's a broker in commercial real estate, and because her office in Uptown didn't have power, the network connection everyone was using to work at home wasn't online. She said there would be some missed deadlines because of it. Lamb also sits on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and they were supposed to hear zoning cases that Tuesday, but the meeting was canceled. Despite all the disruptions, people were still taking the time to help their neighbors.
I imagine this is something that is affecting like your whole neighborhood. Would you say that's the case? Have you spoken to any of your neighbors about this?
Well, it's interesting because I live on Willis, and on my side of the street we have no power, but if you look across the street, our neighbors have power. So I know a lot of our neighbors have taken in other neighbors from across the street.
There were small operations like this going on throughout the city. Mark Melton, a local attorney who we'll meet later, helped take stranded residents to the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, where a warming station had been set up by the city. Additionally, mutual aid funds in North Texas raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to help people in need. Some people were lucky enough to get into hotels when their power went out. Michelle Espinal-Embler, another Dallas resident, lives in a complex of townhomes that lost power for days. Luckily, her husband works at a luxury hotel, so they decided to head there with their 3 kids to get a room.
So we decided to head over to the hotel. We figured that was the safest place for us. And we've got 3 kids, so we knew we had to do something. And we live in a mid-century post-war building that doesn't have any, major insulation upgrades. So we knew we just couldn't stay at home with the kids. And so we've now been at the hotel since yesterday at about 11. My husband went back home to grab some clothes and toys and food for the kids, and there was no signs that the power had gone back on, and our entire complex of townhouses had been completely deserted. There was like 5 cars on the block, when normally it's super full. So from our best gauge, it's been about 38 hours since our neighborhood has had any power.
She said there was mayhem at the hotel when they arrived.
This like super luxury chic hotel had a lobby full of people carrying grocery bags and screaming children, and it was just like it felt like it was out of the Twilight Zone, like a place where it's normally people in $1,000 dresses and sipping fancy cocktails. It felt like a refugee center.
She said she knew her family was going to be okay, but she worried about people who were less fortunate. What turned out to be a moderate inconvenience for them could have been a life-or-death scenario for others.
This is such an incredible humanitarian crisis. Like yesterday, we were only able to eat one hot meal that we spent well over $100 on. And today we spent an hour trying to find a drive-through that was open, and spend well over $100 on enough food to last us through the day. I can't imagine what's happening with people who don't have like disposable income that they can spend in a situation like this.
Governor Greg Abbott later called for an investigation into ERCOT to find out how the grid became so unstable and how outages like this could be prevented in the future. But in the midst of a crisis, people need help now. That's where Mark Melton and other community advocates come in. Melton got a call from City Council member Paula Blackman and Carrie Prysock, the director of the Mayor and City Council office, saying they needed help sourcing bottled water and food for the convention center.
Part of the problem is a lot of the city staff they're snowed in and they can't get to work either, and so everybody's understaffed. And so they asked me to help coordinate some volunteers, and so as I do, just put out feelers on social media and have gotten a really overwhelming response from the community offering to help. And so we've just been coordinating with the city, and then getting people rides to the shelter, or like right now we got one guy that's delivering space heaters and electric blankets to this poor old man. It was just absolutely heartbreaking. He's just crying. You can tell he's shivering. He's so cold. But a lot of these people don't want to leave their homes because they're afraid of what's going to be at the shelters, and they're afraid what's going to happen to their house if they leave. And some of them have pets, and there's not really been any accommodation for pets. They don't want to leave their dogs alone. So just trying to get food, blankets, and anything that provides some heat to these people. So it once again was an unintentional endeavor, but I think it'll probably keep me busy for a few more days.
Melton has gotten pretty good at pooling resources. Since the pandemic, he's been organizing lawyers to help people fight their evictions. Through all of this, they've had to balance their worries about the virus and their concerns for the people in need. Deciding which one is more important is easy for Melton.
And there's a lot of debate, at City Hall even, and even amongst the county and city officials, where you got some people that take the position that this is such a dangerous situation with COVID-19, and is it really smart putting people into shelters like this and in close range of each other? And my response to that is that takes a backseat. When your options are someone can stay under a bridge and freeze to death, almost certainly, or you have some risk of transmission of a virus, the freezing to death immediately should take precedence, and we've just got to manage those risks as best we can. But we can't ignore this problem just because there are other circumstances that we've got to think about. We can't just sit here and let these people die in their houses because we're afraid to go get them, because we might risk transmission.
And just as things seemed like they couldn't get any worse, residents in cities across the state were being asked to boil or conserve their water, as added demand caused partly by broken water lines and rolling power outages put pressure on the supply. Jose Velasquez, an international student at the University of Texas Arlington, was able to hold up at the college when the state came to a freezing halt. While his power was out, he didn't even like going to his home because he was afraid of what condition he'd find it in.
So far, I'm good, but my house is just a mess. It's a total mess. So everything started on Monday morning. I had electricity back home. I was preparing to go to work, and then I came to the office on Monday morning. Monday noon, I came back to my home to prepare something to eat, and I found out that electricity was gone. Then I started reading the news, and then I found out that we have rolling blackouts. Apparently, it was just 45 minutes of blackouts, but those 45 minutes turned into 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours. So it came the first night, and I had to sleep with a house around 55 degrees indoors, like inside my house. Then everything started going down from there. Electricity never came, like to the point that today is Wednesday, and I haven't received any electricity at all since Monday morning. So my house right now, it's around 35 degrees Fahrenheit inside the house, which is almost unbearable. Like, I cannot go there anymore. So it's been extremely hard. And now I woke up this morning to the boiling advisory. So right now, if you get a glass of water, in order for you to drink it, you will have to boil it. The point is that since my house doesn't have electricity at all, and I don't have gas either, then how am I supposed to boil water?
The next day, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality told me that more than 850 disruptions to public water systems affected 13.5 million people statewide. The weekend brought warmer temperatures, but that didn't mean people stopped needing help. Even weeks later, Dallasites are lending their neighbors a hand to recover from the aftermath of the historic winter storm that slammed into Texas. Some people still don't have water. I'm Jacob Vaughn, a journalist based out of North Texas. Some people call me Cobb. And this is the CobCast. Thanks for listening.